favor?
Aye.
Moving on to Mr. Quinn's area of expertise, 14.1, please.
Thank you, Board President. 14.1 is a resolution to establish the Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure K parcel tax. We'd ask that the board pass that resolution so we can start recruiting for the committee.
So moved.
Second.
I have a question, Mr. Quinn. I think that it can come in the bylaws, but I don't see anything in the resolution about certain members representing certain constituent populations, which I thought that was our practice. Well, I mean, it is our practice with our bond oversight committee, right?
Right.
Senior, business, whatever. I
Right.
forget what they are.
I pulled this, I can if you want, I pulled this from the EE Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, and there was nothing like that in there, so I didn't.
Well, this may not be where it lies, actually. So where I found it was in the bylaws,
Right.
which is different from the resolution. So I just wanted to,
Sure.
do people know, do they have, are they okay? What do people feel about it? Do they want it? If so, if it's in the bylaws,
You know,
is
I
that
think
enough?
I think on the application for membership in the committee, I think there's a breakdown on there. I remember seeing that. So let me go back and review that. And before we put out the applications, we can talk about that again and make sure there is a breakdown. Because I do remember seeing it somewhere, but it wasn't in the resolution.
At some point, we're going to have to approve the people who are on the
Yeah.
committees, so we can still use guidelines like that
Right.
at that time. And that's the time when we'll know whether we have 10 applicants for every position or we're struggling to find enough. So,
Okay. And so I'll just ask that you remind us about
Sure.
this conversation
Sure.
at that time.
Sure.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, 14.2, please.
14.2 is bringing back the district reorganization savings plan that we discussed in open session at the last board meeting. And coming out of that last board meeting, we were talking about the list with a general consensus that we pull the last item being the PR contract. So that's how it's being presented tonight, or that's how it was presented when we created the agenda. I would like to say that because of some concerns raised about not only the complexity of these positions, but if we've taken everything into consideration when looking at these positions, we would actually suggest modifying the list to, for now, only including the vacant positions and related changes, and adding in the change to the special ed coordinator position. And I'll itemize those in just a second. But the idea being to put the other items on pause for now so we can go back for further input and research from more people and more groups and make sure we all have a better understanding of what we're doing with this list going forward. So to reiterate that, if you consider the items on the list numbered, we would ask you to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. So it would be vacant technology tech, vacant TOSA, replacing a vacant IT with a computer specialist, vacant bus driver, but adding a bus driver trainer, and then replacing the special ed program specialist with a special ed inclusion coordinator. We would ask that you approve those 6 items. We can put the rest on pause for now.
I move to approve the district reorganization as amended, approving the first 5, 1 through 5, and number 7, and putting a pause on the rest of them.
Second.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying this one. And so I'll, I guess, kind of note that we absolutely have indicated publicly a number of times our commitment to serving our special needs students and moving towards inclusion, and that in order to do so, we absolutely need a special ed coordinator who would be an expert in that area with a deep background in inclusion. And also I do recall that during our presentation from our Director of Ed Services for Elementary and our principal at Elram Khan, that they were commenting that having an outside consultant was helpful, which I noticed. And are there other thoughts? And I appreciate that we're gonna visit data as we look more thoughtfully at especially the impacts in the classroom.
Are there other thoughts from the board?
Yeah, I'd like to say, while I intend to vote for it as amended the way you just outlined, Robert, I wanted to make the point that we really shouldn't be doing these things as a savings plan or as we had to find some money, and so here's where we found it. We should be looking all the time, as I think you agree with me, for where can we save a little, where can we do something.
Teaching Learning Channel videos, and so I go geek out on them, but it's all because of it feels right. At the end of the day, when I'm talking to my students, it just feels right, and it feels like there's been a common understanding and a discussion that the students have had to have versus that's wrong, apologize, okay, now go back to class. Well, nothing's really going to change in the future if we don't take the time to kind of have those discussions. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, that answered my question entirely, and it's a continuum, right? So it's not a bullet point here and a bullet point here and no gray in between. So I appreciate the nuance of it and that we're all learning. And
yeah.
I don't know if any of us are experts. I mean, maybe
Yeah, so-
some of us are, but
I'll just make a plug. This is like a $5 book that I'm like, okay, I can handle this one. You know?
Okay.
So that's where I've started. So.
all right, that's a great place to start. So then I'll just finish off with that. As we know, changes in discipline practices do have an effect on academic outcomes, and of course, we won't be able to tease out the difference between this intervention versus the 45 minutes of teaching space intervention, which also is profound. So we won't know, but I'm excited to watch your data change and compare next year to the past 2 years and so on. So I'm really looking forward
So
to
though,
that.
if we can talk about behaviors, sometimes the behaviors actually spike, and so there might be a dip in our data because people are still getting used to all of these changes, and so I'll just put that disclaimer there that when I look,
5 years.
yeah, it takes 5 years, and behaviors don't change automatically, and sometimes the behaviors spike in revolt to the change, and so yeah, so that's just me geeking out yet again. So. But I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, so we move on to public recognition, and we'll go straight to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Lockhart.
Yes, good evening, Board President Kent, and board members and community. I'm sure that many of us will reference this in our reports tonight.